This video will be demonstrating a functional movement screen for sprinters in the sport of track and field. This screen is used to assess that an athlete is properly moving through the full range of motion in each joint in question. And for this we will be focusing on the MTP joint, the ankle, the knees, and the hips. The athlete will be assessed in this video in the loading phase of a sprint track start, so right before they push off and begin their race. So we'll have you see the athlete get into the stance and hold the position right here. So for the first joint we have the MTP, so you can see right there. So the main physiological movement is going to be extension, which will be in the frontal plane of motion. Additional external forces will be gravity, ground reaction force, mass, and momentum. He's in a weight-bearing position, and from the bottom up, for a movement driver, he's going to be using his feet and legs, and from the top down, his arm contact with the ground. And his extensor hallucis longus will be concentrically contracted at this point, and an eccentric contraction will be the flexor hallucis longus. On to the next joint, we have the ankle. And for every joint in the body, you can see that basically he's got the same exact picture. Basically, you can see right there, those are pretty symmetrical, so we don't need to worry about focusing on left or right. You just need to see both sides moving through the motion. Back to the ankle. The main physiological movement is going to be dorsiflexion, with an accessory movement of inversion, slight, which occurs in the frontal plane of motion and then transverse. Additional external forces again will be gravity, ground reaction force, mass, momentum. He's in a weight-bearing position. His movement driver will be from the bottom up for his feet and legs, and from the top down, his arm contact with the ground. The concentric contraction muscle, or the muscle that is concentrically contracted, will be the anterior tibialis, and an eccentric contraction will be the soleus and the gastroc here you can see. And for the third joint, we'll be focusing on the knee, which you can see is in main physiological movement of flexion. Accessory movement would be slight internal rotation and adduction. And plane of motion then would be all three. He'd be in a frontal, transverse, and sagittal. He'd be operating. Again, additional external forces would be gravity, ground reaction force, mass, momentum. He's in a weight-bearing position. Feet and legs in contact with the ground for bottom up, and the arm contact with the ground from top down. And the concentric contraction would be the hamstrings, biceps femoris, semimembranosus, semitendinosus. And then his eccentric contraction is going to be the quadriceps, which would be the vastus lateralis, vastus medialis, and vastus intermedius, along with rectus femoris. And the last joint here is going to be the hip, and that's physiological movement will be in flexion, and accessory movement would be slight internal rotation, which would be the frontal and transverse planes. Additional forces would be gravity, ground reaction force, mass, momentum. He's in a weight-bearing position. Movement driver again, feet and legs from the bottom up, arms top down. The concentric contraction is going to be his rectus femoris for part of his quads, and then iliopsoas. And then the eccentric is going to mainly be the gluteus maximus. So that is going through with each of the joints. And I'll have Johnny, my subject here, go through just a slow motion down, and I do have him in slow motion so that you can really see that he's operating at each joint properly. Make sure that they're not compensating through their back, or if they're forcing, if their toe seems stuck, so then they just bend their ankle more to get through. Basically looking for any breakdown in this motion they have that could be preventing them from having the perfect start for track, a slow start, painful, anything that could be going wrong. And so you see Johnny kind of bobbed up and down for me to give an example. So anytime you have a track athlete that maybe is suffering from something, this would be a good way to look and see at which joint are they breaking down and how can we fix it. And the next video I will be doing will show exercises that could demonstrate to isolate each of those joints and see how you can fix this whole kinetic chain for an athlete. And that's it.